In the Walking Dead universe, civilization doesn't just collapse, it rebuilds itself, layer by layer, from the ashes. And if you map every community across the shows, comics, and spin-offs, a clear pattern emerges. 7 distinct levels of human organization, each more complex, more powerful, and more morally complicated than the last. It starts with the most basic thing imaginable: a handful of strangers, some tents, and a prayer. Level 1, temporary camps. This is where it all started, not just for Rick Grimes, but for every single viewer watching. And if we're being honest, it's hard not to feel a little nostalgic about the quarry camp, the tents, Dale's RV, Shane doing push-ups and acting like he invented leadership. It felt scrappy. It felt human. But here's the thing. It was also a death trap. The Atlanta camp is the absolute floor of what a community can be in the Walking Dead universe. A cluster of tents, a couple vehicles, and 0 engineered defenses beyond parking an RV at a good angle and hoping someone stays awake on watch. That's it. That's the whole plan. The group didn't even choose this location strategically. They ended up near Interstate 85 outside Atlanta through pure happenstance. Strangers fleeing the same outbreak converging on the same stretch of highway because it felt close enough to the city for supply runs and far enough away to sleep at night. Leadership wasn't elected or earned. Shane just started talking louder than everyone else, and nobody objected. Which is, not ideal as a governance model. Every single day at this camp was borrowed time. There's no agriculture, no long-term food storage, no water purification. Dinner depends entirely on whether someone successfully hunted a deer or made it back from a scavenging run into downtown Atlanta, a city literally overflowing with walkers. The camp was completely parasitic on the decaying leftovers of the old world, and nobody seemed to notice the leftovers were running out. And that location near the interstate, the one they picked because it offered easy escape routes and highway access? Turns out, highways work in both directions. A walker herd wandered straight off that road and directly into the sleeping area. People died in their tents. The camp's biggest advantage became its fatal weakness in a single night. That moment is the show drawing a line in the sand. Improvised camps built on convenience and familiarity are not survival strategies. They're countdown timers. And the clock had been ticking since episode 1. But at least the quarry camp only had to worry about walkers stumbling in. The next level of community had walls, fences, and watchtowers. And it still wasn't enough. Level 2, secured compounds. The leap from level 1 to level 2 is the difference between sleeping with one eye open and actually sleeping. Rick's group goes from tents and campfires to watchtowers, razor wire, and reinforced cell blocks. And the irony of where they find this safety is almost too perfect. The West Georgia Correctional Facility is a prison, a place literally designed to keep people locked inside. And these survivors look at it and go, yeah, that's home. They voluntarily move into cells, they sleep behind bars, and for the first time since the outbreak, they feel free. Which is, a pretty aggressive redefining of the word freedom. But here's the thing, the prison actually works. Rick's group clears it methodically, pushing inward from the outer yards through the cell blocks, establishing differentiated zones for everything a functioning community needs. Sleeping quarters in the cells, crops and pig pens in the yards, fenced perimeters acting as kill zones where walkers get neutralized before they ever reach the inner areas. They set up rainwater collection, grow their own food, raise livestock. The place becomes semi-self-sustaining. They even use the segmented architecture to run quarantine procedures when a viral outbreak tears through the population, basically turning a correctional facility into rudimentary public health infrastructure. A prison doing double duty as a hospital. I don't know what to tell you. The population swells to 37 residents after absorbing survivors from Woodbury. And for a stretch of the show, it genuinely feels like these people might make it. This is the classic era for a lot of fans. The community has structure, purpose, and something that almost resembles normalcy behind all that concrete and chain link, but the prison has a ceiling, and that ceiling is a man with a tank. The governor's militia rolls up with small arms and actual military hardware, blasts through the gates, kills Herschel in one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the entire series, and scatters the group into the wilderness. Everything they built, every crop they planted, every fence they reinforced, gone. One warlord with enough firepower reduced it all to ruins in an afternoon. And that's the lesson of level 2. Physical fortification alone cannot guarantee survival. Walls keep walkers out, but they don't stop a human enemy who wants you dead badly enough. The prison proves that communities need more than razor wire. They need political relationships, intelligence networks, and alliances, which is exactly what the survivors don't have, but someone else does. And his approach to community building makes the governor look like a minor inconvenience. Level 3, Warlord Factions. Up until now, every community we've talked about has been trying to survive. The Sanctuary is trying to dominate. And that distinction is what makes it one of the most fascinating and terrifying settlements in the entire Walking Dead universe. The sanctuary is a repurposed industrial factory, and on the surface, it looks like any other fortified compound. Fences, metal walls, vehicles stacked as barricades. But here's the thing. What makes the Sanctuary Level 3 has nothing to do with its walls. It's the system built around them. Negan doesn't just lead a group of survivors. He runs a protection racket across an entire region. Alexandria, Hilltop, the Kingdom. They all hand over half their supplies to the Saviors. Half. Not because Negan provides anything of value in return, but because the alternative is total annihilation. He shows up with Lucille, bashes someone's skull in, and then says, "We are the Saviors." Like he just did you a favor, which is, not ideal. And the scary part? It works. The Saviors grow to nearly 600 members. Soldiers, workers, families, children, all sustained not through farming or trade, but through systematically bleeding every community within driving distance. It's an entire economy built on the threat of violence. Nice crops you got there. Be a shame if something happened to them. But let's talk about the walker mode. Captured walkers are chained around the entire exterior of the compound, forming a living barricade of rotting corpses that serves as both a physical defense and a giant neon sign that says, "I own death itself." You can't even approach the sanctuary without walking past dozens of the undead on leashes. It's less a security measure and more a statement. Inside, the hierarchy is brutal, but weirdly codified. Negan and his inner circle live in comfort, while rank-and-file workers operate under strict discipline and constant fear. But then he has rules. Rape is explicitly prohibited, and violators get dealt with personally by Negan, often fatally. So you've got a man who will cave your friend's head in with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, but draws the line at sexual assault. It's a paradoxical blend of cruelty and order that somehow keeps 600 people in line. The Sanctuary also operates satellite outposts and roadblocks across the region. This isn't a base. It's the capital of a warlord empire, a proto-state built entirely on fear and myth, where extortion gets rebranded as salvation, and one man's charisma holds the whole thing together through sheer force of personality and a really memorable bat. But if the Sanctuary represents what happens when a community is built on exploitation, the next level shows us what happens when one is built on something far more fragile. Level 4. Walled towns. After everything we've seen so far, from makeshift camps to prison yards to Negan's factory of nightmares, Alexandria feels almost jarring, because Alexandria isn't trying to survive the apocalypse. It's trying to pretend the apocalypse never happened. And here's the thing, it almost pulls it off. The Alexandria Safe Zone is a walled residential community in Virginia, and its origin story is genuinely fascinating. It wasn't built as a fortress. It wasn't repurposed from a military base. It was an eco-friendly urban development project. An engineer named Reg Monroe designed it before the world ended as a model for sustainable suburban living. Corrugated iron sheets buttressed by steel tubing, originally meant to look nice and reduce environmental impact. Then the dead started walking, and completely by accident, Reg had built one of the most defensible residential structures on the East Coast, which is, a pretty solid return on investment for a green energy project. Inside those walls, Alexandria looks like someone hit pause on civilization. Detached houses with actual gardens. Paved streets, a church. Deanna Monroe, a former congresswoman, runs the place under a quasi-democratic system with assigned roles and a community council. People have jobs. People argue about whose turn it is to do the dishes. After watching Negan rule through a barbed wire bat, this feels almost surreal. But that normalcy is exactly what makes Alexandria so fragile. The original residents are dangerously naive. Limited combat experience. An undertrained security detail that treats wall duty like a neighborhood watch shift. These are people who've been living behind walls so long they've forgotten what's on the other side. Rick's arrival changes everything. His group brings real combat tactics and a survivalist mentality that saves the community multiple times over. But it also arguably destroys what made Alexandria special. Deanna envisioned a place where people could be people again. Rick turned it into a place where people could stay alive. Those aren't always the same thing. And Alexandria gets tested, repeatedly. A massive walker herd breaches the walls. The Whisperers devastate the infrastructure. Each time, the community rebuilds. And that's what separates Alexandria from every community below it on this list. The prison fell and stayed fallen. The sanctuary collapsed when its leader was removed. Alexandria breaks, repairs itself, absorbs survivors from Hilltop and the Kingdom, and keeps going. It's not just a fortified position, it's a town, and towns don't die easy. The real tension at the heart of Alexandria is one every real society faces. How much freedom do you sacrifice for safety? Without Deanna's vision, it's just another compound. Without Rick's ruthlessness, it's a graveyard with nice landscaping. But if you think a single-walled town is impressive, wait until multiple communities start working together. because that's where things get really interesting. Level 5. Interconnected networks. Here's where The Walking Dead stops being a survival horror show and starts being a political drama. And honestly, it's about time. Everything up to this point has been communities operating in isolation. One group, one wall, one leader, one set of problems. The Coalition changes all of that. For the first time in the franchise, multiple settlements sit down and figure out how to actually work together. Not through fear, not through extortion, through diplomacy, through trade, through the radical idea that maybe helping each other is smarter than hoarding everything behind your own fence. The Alliance pulls together Alexandria, Hilltop Colony, the Kingdom, and loosely Oceanside, and each community brings something completely different to the table. Hilltop operates out of a former Virginia estate with a mansion, a wooden palisade, and extensive farmland. They're the breadbasket of the region. Leadership transfers from Gregory, who is essentially a coward wearing a leadership hat, to Maggie Rhee, who actually understands what the place is supposed to be. She doesn't just protect Hilltop, she declares it a regional sanctuary. That's foreign policy. In the apocalypse, then you've got the Kingdom, which is genuinely one of the strangest communities in the entire franchise. Ezekiel adopts a full medieval aesthetic. King figure, feudal titles, theatrical speeches, the whole thing. And here's the thing, it's deliberate. He knows it's a performance, but he also knows that survivors need something to believe in beyond don't get eaten today. The pageantry gives people identity, purpose, morale. It's silly, and it's brilliant at the same time. The Kingdom also contributes trained fighters and a disciplined militia, so they're not just vibes, they're muscle. Alexandria rounds it out with infrastructure, running water, electricity, a central hub for coordination. Between the three of them, you've got food, fighters, and facilities. That's an actual functioning economy. But the Coalition doesn't form because everyone decided to be friends. It forges in the fire of all-out war against Negan. Communities that bled together start trading together, rebuilding walls together, resettling displaced residents together. It's genuinely hopeful, genuinely complicated too. Oceanside periodically refuses formal integration, which makes sense when you remember that the Saviors murdered every male in their community over the age of 10. Trust isn't a switch you flip. It's a wound that heals slowly, and sometimes not at all. But the fact that these wildly different cultures, an agrarian estate, a medieval kingdom, a suburban enclave, and a traumatized coastal settlement managed to cooperate at all, that's the most impressive thing any community has achieved in this franchise. It's messy, it's fragile, and it cracks under pressure, but it holds, and that matters. Of course, a regional alliance of a few hundred people is one thing, but what happens when you scale that up to 50,000? The Commonwealth is about to show exactly how ugly civilization can get when the wrong people are in charge. After 5 levels of communities scratching and clawing their way towards something resembling civilization, the Commonwealth just goes ahead and builds one. 50,000 people. Let that number sit for a second. That's not a settlement. That's not a compound. That's a city. And it operates like one too. We're talking marketplaces, sports events, cafes, bars, shops lining actual streets. There's a professional military, a formal legal system, bureaucratic institutions handling everything from food distribution to labor assignments. You could walk through the Commonwealth, and if you squinted hard enough, forget the world ended. It's the single most impressive feat of reconstruction in the entire Walking Dead universe, and it's not particularly close. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Beneath all of that normalcy operates a rigid caste system, and not one based on what you've done since the apocalypse. Your social standing in the Commonwealth is determined by what you did before the world fell apart. Former doctors, politicians, business leaders, top of the food chain, former service workers, laborers, anyone who wasn't already sitting pretty, bottom. Enjoy your assigned role, which is, not ideal. Everyone in the Commonwealth survived the same nightmare. Everyone lost people. Everyone fought to stay alive. And the reward for all of that shared trauma is being told, hey, great job not dying. Anyway, you used to wait tables, so here's a mop. It's the apocalypse version of checking someone's credit score before letting them into the lifeboat. Governor Pamela Milton sits at the top of this whole thing, presiding over formal ceremonies and elite social circles like the world didn't literally end. The old world's ruling class, rebuilt from scratch, convinced that this is what stability looks like. And for a while, it works. 50,000 people don't stay organized by accident, but the caste system breeds exactly what you'd expect. Resentment, the slow realization among the lower classes that they survived the end of civilization just to be told they're not good enough for the nice part of town. Pamela is eventually overthrown and imprisoned for life. The system she built was impressive in scale, but rotten at its core. The Commonwealth also functions as a regional power, offering resources and expertise that smaller communities simply don't have. But Hilltop and Oceanside refuse to fully join, and honestly, can you blame them? Come be part of our amazing city where your pre-apocalypse resume determines your entire life is a tough sales pitch. And that's the real tension. The Commonwealth answers the question every survivor has been asking since day one. Can we rebuild civilization? Yes. Turns out, yes, you can. Complete with all the inequality and injustice that made the old one worth questioning in the first place. It's the conscious choice to look at a blank slate and recreate the exact same broken system. Nostalgia for the old world dressed up as progress. You wanted civilization back? Here it is, same as it ever was. But if the Commonwealth makes you uneasy, wait until you hear about the community that makes it look like a neighborhood block party. Level 7, Advanced Republics. Every community we've talked about so far has one thing in common. You can see them. You can find them on a map, walk up to their walls, knock on their gate. The Civic Republic doesn't work like that. This is a shadow government operating above the apocalypse while everyone else scrambles in the dirt. The Civic Republic and its military arm, the CRM, are the most powerful organization in the entire Walking Dead universe. Which sounds like hyperbole until you realize what they actually have. A fully operational republic centered in an undisclosed location, running covert operations across multiple territories with helicopters, organized air mobility, and weaponry that makes every other community on this list look like they're fighting with sticks. While Alexandria is patching holes in a corrugated iron fence, these people are conducting long-range aerial deployments. It's not even the same game. But here's where it gets genuinely terrifying. The Civic Republic doesn't just hoard power, it uses it. Entire settlements have been wiped off the map by the CRM under the justification that those communities posed a risk to the larger mission. Not a direct threat, a risk. A variable in a species-level survival equation that some council decided wasn't worth keeping around. Sorry about your town, but we ran the numbers, and you didn't make the cut, which is, not ideal. And the secrecy isn't a side effect, it's the strategy. The Commonwealth walks around flexing its 50,000 citizens for everyone to see. The Civic Republic does the opposite. Nobody knows it exists. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows how many people it has. By staying invisible, it avoids every external problem that drags other communities down. No wars over territory. No desperate survivors banging on the gates. Just a republic operating in total darkness, answering to nobody but itself. Here's the thing that should keep you up at night. The Civic Republic uses democratic language. It calls itself a republic. It frames everything as being for the collective good of humanity, but it enforces that vision through militarized secrecy and authoritarian control. It will destroy communities to protect research. It will erase populations to prevent what it considers a larger disaster. It has decided unilaterally that it gets to choose who lives and who dies at a civilizational scale, and nobody voted for that. The 7 levels we've covered trace a journey that starts with a handful of people camping next to a quarry with some tents and a Winnebago. It ends here, with a secret republic deploying helicopters across state lines and making cold calculations about which settlements deserve to continue existing, from campfires to shadow governments. But advancing through those levels, building walls, forming alliances, creating institutions, none of it automatically makes you better. The Civic Republic is the most sophisticated community in the entire Walking Dead franchise. It is also, by a comfortable margin, the most morally compromised. That's not a coincidence. That's the point. The further you climb, the harder the choices get. And at the very top, the people making those choices have decided that humanity is worth saving, even if they have to destroy parts of it to do it. Whether that makes them heroes or monsters is the one question the franchise never fully answers. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.